I'm Dennis Kowalski, and I'm 84 years old, and I grew up in the Stephen area on a farm north and west of town here. And we started out in a country school, and at the 7th grade we consolidated into Stephen.
What country school? What country
It was
school?
at District 43.
Where was that at?
That was west of town. If you went out, what is this, Highway 5 here?
Yep.
If you go out 5 to 220 and turn and went north, 1, 2, 3, 4 miles.
I'll be darned, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and just before the Tamarack River, there was a country school that we attended, and there was, the 8th grades, and there was...
We went through 8th grade.
It did, but they consolidated, so we were the last of the group, and we were at 7th grade, and they switched to Stephen.
Okay.
And there was 4 of us in the class, in our class at the time, and there was about 20-some kids in that school.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
All different ages, or?
Yeah, from all the way from grade 1 all through 8.
Was that a single house school or single room school then?
Yeah, one room school. Yeah, and then after we consolidated into Stephen, I don't know exact year, but we then were picked up by bus, and it was surprising because at the time we were the first ones on the bus, and we would go about 11 miles, and a 42 passenger bus was full. And now there are 0 people living out there along the river area because of all the floods. So anyway, then when I graduated in '57, and in the fall after all the farm work was done, I went in the service in October, and I went into what was called the Brown Boot Army. It was the OD uniforms, and then they switched the first of the year. We went to the green that they have now.
Dennis, when you went in, was there anybody you knew?
Nobody that went in with me into the Army, no.
Okay.
I was the only, at Fargo, when I was there getting the basic training, then there were some from North Dakota, some guys, but they didn't go out to the next day, so I was on a train all by myself all the way and they gave us a sleeping berth and everything, and all I worried about was I'd wake up in time to get off the train where I was in Fort Carson. That's where I was going, to Fort Carson.
You were at Fort Carson, Colorado?
Yeah,
okay.
That's where I took my boot camp. And when we got there, we spent, I don't know what they call it, but anyway, you get there and they orient you and get you a nice haircut and all this kind of stuff. We were there for about 5 days, then we went to our company, but then they were switching, the Army was switching over from the old divisions or whatever it was to the new battle groups. So they didn't want us caught in the middle, so we only went through 5 weeks of boot camp. We trained Saturdays and Sundays, and stuff, and we got out. So then at Christmas we were done.
What months were you there?
I was from October till December 31st.
So it was cool enough, pretty good then.
What's that?
It was getting kind of cool about that time.
Well, it was, but it was surprising because we had it was an abnormal year. We did have a couple of little snowstorms or snowfalls, but nothing to really amount to anything. And then we went up and I forget, we had to march like a mile uphill to this other place and it was a live fire range, and then we had a camp out in our little tents, and we hit the weather up there was like 65 to 70 degrees all day and night. Year before, they had 3 feet of snow at that time, and they had to go up there with cats and dozers to get the troops out. So we lucked out, and then we came home. So we got off, came home, and after Christmas, I went to Fort Belvoir, Virginia, to go to...
Well, you were there. Did you go up Pikes Peak at all? Because you were right there.
No, we didn't have no time to do anything. You trained and slept. Well, we'd work, a lot of times trained till 9, 10 o'clock at night, just to push us through early. And so after that, then I went to Fort Belvoir, Virginia. And
right to it? Didn't go home or anything?
Well, we went, at Christmas we were off for about a week. and then we went to Fort Belvoir,
So you
Virginia.
did go home,
Yeah,
came home and,
yeah, at that time, yeah. And the nice thing about it was I had paid leave because they travel time rather, so we had so much travel time to
Get there.
get there and stuff. So anyway, we came home for that year. And then at Fort Belvoir, I went to school there for diesel mechanic, but being that we got pushed out of there quick, like, we had 6 weeks of nothing because we couldn't start our classes. But when we got to Fort Belvoir, then it was about the end of January, we had a snowfall. It was 3 feet of snow. And you talk about everything coming to a dead standstill because there's no equipment to move the snow. But anyway, after we went through our schooling there, then I went back to Fort Carson, Colorado, and worked there. And I was a diesel mechanic, and I worked it was a civilian shop. There was only 2 of us GIs.
so you diesel mechanic,
Yeah.
how much training was involved in that?
Well, we had about 10 weeks of training, and you took both. You took like International, Caterpillar, Basari series, and all that. And they really, it was a good school.
They got in pretty
A
well
lot of
into depth?
all hands on.
Okay,
So then we worked with these civilians over there, and there was only 2 of us. And it was the sergeant that I was working with was from Duluth, and being from Minnesota, both of us, he lived off post, so he told me, he says, every Saturday morning you come back to work, come back to the shop and backblade the parking lots, so you don't have to stand inspection. So I never had an inspection the whole time I was there. Well, then I think it was June. I took a leave and went home, and then I was supposed to start heavy equipment operator school. When I got back to camp, but when I got back to Carson, I was on orders for Greenland. So then I went home again because I had this travel time, and I think I spent about 2 weeks at home. And some of the neighbors were laughing, "You're spending more time at home than you are in the military." And then we went out to Greenland, and there.
how'd you get there?
Well, we flew, to Greenland, and we landed once in Goose Bay, and then flew on. And I said, I can just see there I was sitting by a window by the wing engine. I was looking at this oil coming over out of the cowling of the engine.
Oh.
And you're wondering how much oil is in there as it would go over. But anyway, we made it there.
What kind of plane was it?
It was a big cargo plane of some sort. I don't know the numbers of those, but
It was like an Air Force or Army plane, or
yeah, it was a military Air Force one.
what kind of seats did that? Was it?
Well, they had
web
it was
seating?
set up for regular
Commercial?
transportation, yeah.
Okay.
And so anyway, we got up there, and then you're in 24 hours of daylight, which was surprising. And the temperature was probably in the high 30s, and it stayed there pretty much like that all the way through. And then when it's strange, but when you get up there, all the buildings, they are like the water lines, everything are run above ground, and they're all insulated. And then the barracks look like these big walk-in meat coolers. They had the push handle on them. You go in there and stuff, and they were big wide wall. And they had drums of 55 gallon drums full of sand to hold them down because the winds get so strong out there.
Oh, wow.
But we were stationed down at the air base, but we were servicing the missile sites on the hill. And there, we could sit down on the barracks here and look up there, and storms were so bad you couldn't see their buildings. So it was kind of different. And
were they Minuteman sites?
they were Nike Herkies. Actually, we installed them up there. They had 90 millimeter guns up there when we got up there, and then we took those out, put these Nike Hercules in there. Well, they were just installing them. So our job, being a diesel mechanic, we had to go there. The Danish contractors installed all the equipment, and stuff. So we'd go in there and test them out to make sure everything was working. And what they did was they run our generators for the missile, and they would convert the electricity from like 120 cycle to 60 cycle, and to run all that equipment. So our job was to keep them running all the time. And you always had three units on working.
These are generators?
Yeah, to the generators, but you had to keep 2 engines had to be working all the time. Third one, if it broke down, you had to quick go out and repair it. Well, then we had teams to go out and service 24 hours a day, and I was the team leader. But so whoever broke down, it was you had electrician, a diesel mechanic, and a hydraulics guy. So, but whoever broke down, I had to go with them. But you got the next day off or whatever. So sometimes we fudged it if we didn't want to do something the next day.
Sure.
So anyway, it was nothing but work. I mean, you didn't have no inspections, no nothing. You just did your job.
What's your rank at this time?
What's that?
What's your rank at this time?
At the time I was E3 or 4, E4.
E4.
Yeah, spec 3. And also when I got up there, we didn't have a welder, and they asked if anybody knew any welding. Well, I had taken welding in high school and had done some. So anyway, I did the welding there. At first it was kind of, not too great, but after a little practice, then it got to the point that I was getting pretty good. Well, the Air Force would bring some of their stuff over to me to stick weld, and I'd send our heliarc stuff out to them because we didn't have a heliarc machine. So I kept busy on most of the stuff, but then between the operation on the generators and stuff, and then finally, the year went by. We spent the whole year up there. Well, actually, it was 11 and a half months.
In Greenland.
In Greenland. And then we came back to the States. And
was there anything to do in Greenland? I mean, was there cities to go look?
Well,
did you do any touring at all?
There was nothing in Greenland other than the air base, and there was a small Danish group that were off to the side, and there were families living there, but they didn't come into the base. We knew they were there, so there were 7 females on the base, and those were 7 nurses that worked in the hospital. But other than that, it was all men, and it was the Sac Air Base, so we had all the planes coming in. We lived about 200 yards from the runway. So every plane coming in day and night, you heard them, and like the mail planes that would come in had a different tone on the engines, so we knew when mail came in. Yeah. But sometimes that never came in for 3 or 4 weeks. You'd get probably a month mail that was built up a month or whatever, So it was different up there, and stuff, and you'd see these planes come in with 2 engines feathered. They'd run out, and we were working on this one job, and the civilian contractor was working on the dew line, and he was waiting for this one piece of equipment to come up there, and the plane ran into trouble, so they had to start dumping cargo. And he said, guess what? Mine was on the far end. He says, closest to the door, and he says, the dew line, they do drop. He said, I lost it, and now I'm going to be here for another, I don't know how many weeks before they could ship my new. So it was, kind of isolated up there.
So you say it was daylight? Was it daylight?
Well, it was 24 hours a day, and when we got up there, it was 24 hours of daylight. Then about 6 weeks, a few weeks before Christmas, till into about the middle of January, pitch black. I mean, there was no daylight at all. The coldest it got while I was there was 27 below. And it was kind of funny because they'd write and tell me how do you like it up there in the cold? And we were warmer than Grand Forks. so that was kind of different. But then in the summer, the following summer, that had been 58, we had a heat wave, 47 degrees, and we were up at one of the missile sites working, and it melted so fast that we got caught up there. We couldn't get down. The road got washed out.
That's the warmest it got, was 47 degrees?
47 degrees, but it melted.
So the whole time you were in cool weather?
That was only one day, though, that it got that warm. And we had to stay up there for about 4 days before the roads got fixed. They were going to send a helicopter up to pick us up, but then it turned cold enough, so they just got the roads back and stuff. So then after that, after I got relocated to the States, they sent me to White Sands, New Mexico.
White Sands, New
Yeah, and when I left Greenland at that time, it was temperatures in the 40s. Got up to White Sands, New Mexico, 115, and
dry heat.
Yeah, the dry heat. Yeah. And We got there on a Sunday. Monday morning, I went to check into base, and the guy, the personnel, he says, "How would you like to waiver your time and go up to Churchill, Manitoba? We need a diesel mechanic up there." I says, "Where do I stand?" That was on Monday, and Wednesday I was on a bus back home. Spent some more time at
Another
home
leave.
because on my way to Canada, so I went right through Stephen, yeah, and stuff.
Right.
So we went up to Churchill, and I got up there. Well, we got into Winnipeg, and then they're going to fly us out to Churchill. We flew. I don't know why we flew out late in the evening, and it was dark when we got there, and they had a storm in Churchill, so we couldn't land, so we had to come back to Winnipeg, stayed overnight, and then left the next morning and flew up there. And there, when I got up there, I wasn't a diesel mechanic, I was a generator operator. And what we were doing up there was attached to White Sands, New Mexico, and then there was the University of Michigan and Michigan Tech were checking, and what they do is we had these radar sites, and they would fire missiles into the northern lights, and they were checking like magnetic fields. So we'd go out there in the middle of the night, when the northern lights lined up right, they would fire those missiles into there. And my job was to make sure that I had the generators all at the right sequence. Well, there was two of us that did that, to get it into the right sequence, so the radars, everything operated. Well, then, besides that, then the U.S. and a lot of other countries that bring missiles up there and test them. And the U.S. had brought out some Nike, not Nike, but I forget what they were. They were launched off of trucks, and they tried to see, and they'd even sit out there on this is in the middle of winter, sit out there on the edge of the bay where the wind would blow on them, so they turned real cold. Well, the first one that they tried with these different lubricants, it almost took the truck with it when it launched. It wouldn't roll off. The rollers wouldn't move. So anyway, and then they test that, and then England brought up some stuff, and they would test it. And our job was they would track all of these and stuff, and we had nothing to do while they were going to launch. So they had these big field glasses. They were like 500 power field glasses they used on the ship.
Wow.
We would watch the missile take off, and one would crank to go up and the other one this way and follow the missiles, because they had to get up so high before the radar would lock onto them. So that, give us something to do. And then NASA went on, NASA went on strike. So there was about 10 weeks we had nothing to do, but we'd go out in the morning, play pinochle all day long, come home and play more pinochle. That's the way it went till...
Life is good.
Till I don't know, it was into December. And then everybody went home on leave, except 3 of us stayed to keep up the camp.
Doesn't sound right for you not to go home on leave.
Well, not at Christmas, because the guy that was with me, he had just gotten married, and I just had gotten a baby, but he hadn't seen it yet. And I said, well, I don't make any difference to me. You go home. So he went home. So the 3 of us stayed there, and I was a duty, so then I was driving, and I'd haul the people out to whenever there was a missile shoot or whatever, and till one day we were going to have a missile shoot one night, and I had some time to kill, so I asked the sergeant if I could go in and go skating. He says, go ahead. So I did, and the next morning was on a Saturday, and we had a big meeting, and they were calling different people. We just got a new first sergeant. I got called out of the meeting, and this first sergeant said, where were you last night? And I said, well, we started out, I said, I went down, took everybody out to the missile site, and then I came back and I went skating. He said, that's why you're here. He said, you parked in front of the skating rink and you got a ticket for unauthorized use of a government vehicle. And he said, in the first place, he said, how come you're driving? Because E5 shouldn't be a duty driver.
So you're an E5 now?
Yeah. And I said, don't make any difference to me. I said, I was driving. I did it because nobody was here for Christmas, so I did it. And he said, from now on, you don't do it anymore. I said, well, what am I going to do? Come in here every morning, and this was about 8 weeks or so before I was getting out of the service. You come in here every morning, we have coffee together, and then I don't care what you do. Well, I had nothing to do, so I'd go back to the barracks or go and visit somebody else or something, and just to kill time. And then I got out and I come back to Fort Sheridan, Illinois to get my discharge. And then I got back. So they'll let you out 90 days early, but I got back 13 days too soon. So then I had to kill 13 days over there. And one time I had to pull targets for the officers were qualifying. And one day I had to march these, I forget what, the dishonorable discharge people. They give you an M1 with the full clip. You take these guys in, they'd have to pick up their clothes, you march them over to finance, they get paid, march them out the base. And once they got out the door, they were out the base, they were all done. And I think I did that a couple days and some other stuff just to kill time. And then I
Is that what
finally
you
got
qualified on? Was an M1?
What's that?
When you qualified?
When I first started in boot camp, I qualified with the old M1. And after I got out of boot camp, I never seen a gun again till I had a carbine while I was guarding those people, but I never seen a gun.
You were around these missile sites and you never
had a gun. No, never wished anything. We did have when we first got up there and installing this stuff. It wasn't, we just go up there and work and stuff. But then one Sunday, the nuclear people went in and armed them with nuclear warheads. Well, we were given badges to go up to the site, and we never thought about taking with them. Got up there, and here's his guard. He wouldn't let us, stopped us, and this guy that was driving, he says, "That's okay, Khrushchev sent us." And that wasn't the right thing to say. They sent us right back down to base. You get your thing, and then we had to go back.
You didn't have a sense of humor.
There was no sense of humor there. Yeah, once the nuclear warheads got on, and we were in this building, and that building was probably 300 feet long and then quite wide and stuff. And there was one corner was these nuclear work people, and then there was the signal corps in another, and there was the engineers in another, and there was all these different groups in this one building. And I think that we had the best captain that was our commander of anybody. I said, I would have followed him any place. But that nuclear captain, I think I'd have shot him. He was the most miserable. All he did was glory of himself. First Army, the big generals would come in or stuff. He was right behind him. Our captain and lieutenant, as soon as they'd come, we're going to the base. They'd pull out and go. You never seen him around. They just get out. But this guy, he followed them every place. He was bucking for rank.
Well, while you're in the service, what was the food like?
The food? Well, actually, we ate at the Air Force mess up in Greenland, and it wasn't too bad, except they cornered these, I think they were lima beans, green beans and stuff, every meal. And then when I got back and I was going to fly out of the airport, I ordered a supper and they gave me those beans. And I started to laugh, and the gal said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I've eaten those beans for the whole year." And so she went and got a different plate of food, or a different vegetable. But otherwise, the Army food, well, we all complained. Well, we complained the whole time we were in there about something, but the food wasn't that bad. And it wasn't quite as bad as this one guy said, that one Air Force guy, he said, "I was out eating out of the garbage can," and he said, "The cook told me, you get back inside, you're no better than the rest of them." But all in all, it wasn't too bad.
So you mustered out in Illinois?
Was that? Fort Sheridan, Illinois. That's where I.
That's where you got out.
Yeah.
So what did your folks think of you being in the service?
Nothing, because I was the third one out of my oldest brother spent 3 years in the service in Korea instead, and then I had another brother that spent 2 years and then when he got out, my other brother was going in, and he spent 2 years in the service in Alaska, and then I spent 3 years in.
You guys got around.
And then I had 6 sisters that had their husbands were all in World War II. I think one day I counted up. I think we had a total of about 32 years of service out of our family.
Wow.
And because of the brother-in-laws all being in, and they were in longer because of the war going on and stuff. But they were in the war, and my brother was in the Korean War, but he was in intelligence, so he was, wasn't really close to the front lines or anything. But
doesn't matter where you're at in a war zone.
No,
you're still vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we were in Greenland, one Saturday, the sergeant and I were up one of the missiles, they were going to check the missile out, and they started lifting it, and the doors didn't open, but the missile came up, and it bent a bunch of bars and stuff. So we had to go in there and cut the bars out and re-weld them and everything. And while we were there, all of a sudden, this one guy's come in and said, "It's a SAC alert." He said, "You have to go back to the base." So we went back, and everybody had guns, and they were, you know, every intersection there was guards and everything, and I guess some little country was kicking up their heels. So the air base all went on alert, and they had all the planes sitting at the end of the runway ready to roll. And we got there, and at the time, when we got there, they didn't have room for us in our company, so we were living with another company. So when I got there, I went to my barracks, and I called the sergeant. I said, "What do I do?" He said, "It's a SAC alert. Get your stack and stay there." So everybody's going, but I didn't. I said, I locked out on more things, but I said, you know, I didn't dare re-enlist because I knew it couldn't stay like that. Somewhere along the line it was going to catch up with you.
It's going to catch up to you, yeah.
No,
so you get out of the service, what did you do? Well,
once I got out of the service in that fall, you know, I helped with the harvest again, and then I went to Toledo. I went to meat cutter school, and then I met Marlis, and we were dating. And then she went to Minneapolis.
Hang on, she's here, so we'll get her on camera a little bit here. Hi, Marlis.
Yeah, he followed me, or he wouldn't let me go alone, I guess. But I was just out of high school, and I was gonna leave. I grew up here too, and I just wanted to get somewhere else so I went to Minneapolis with some cousins and stuff, and we all got jobs down there, and then I guess we stayed down there.
Thank you.
So then I got the job in St. Paul, and then that.
Meat cutting?
What's that?
Meat cutting or?
Meat cutting.
Yeah, as a meat cutter, yeah. In
Okay.
St. Paul, I was working for IGA store, and then then we were going to get married. And the only time I could get some time off, and she could get a little time off, was Thanksgiving. So we got married on the 25th of November, which was also her folks' wedding anniversary date. So we came up on, I think we come up on a Wednesday night, wasn't it? And then we got married on Saturday, and Sunday went back home, and Monday we're back to work.
How many years you been married?
Well, it's going to 61.
Oh, wow.
No, it's going on 61, yeah, because we got married in 61 now, so. I keep telling people that I met her my cousin got married in Greenbush, and then I was his best man, and then I met her at a church, like a church supper. But then I met her, but that was about it. But then we went to a class play, and she was there, and her and her friend came, and they were sitting behind us in the theater. And afterward, my cousin's wife says, "Why don't you ask the girls behind you if they want to come for cake and ice cream?" So anyway, I asked Marlis when she came, and I said, "We've been eating cake and ice cream now for 61 years."
So is there anything, Dennis, that you wish you'd have done different in the service, or?
Well, yeah, if I would have done it again, I'd have went for heavy equipment operator instead of a diesel mechanic. I think it was a little more interesting, but I got to run the equipment that we worked on and stuff too while we were in there and stuff, so, and it was easy duty. I had thought about one time, there was a tank division, and the whole company was gyroing over to Germany. So they wanted extra people. So this one of the guys told me, he says, "Why don't we go over there, we'll join that tank group and go to Germany." So anyway, I had my 401 file, or whatever the number was, under my arm, and he was with, and we got over there, and this guy says, "The commander's coming off of the hills." He says, "He'll be here if you got to talk to him." Well, the tanks rolled in, and they're all dirty and everything, and the guy says, "Okay, boys, wash them down." I took the folder out of my arm and went back to my own company. No way I'm going to be washing tanks for the rest of my 2 or 3 years, So I stayed with and that. And all in all, I said, I think that everybody should have to put time in the service. I think it was a good training. I mean, the ones that spend time in the war zone, it's a whole different ball game. But I mean, I'm talking about other, like us that weren't in the service. That everybody, well, should have spent some time in there, because maybe they would have changed their minds a little bit about what they're doing now. And all this protesting and stuff, the military, and I said it kind of bugs you
Yeah.
when you see that. But all in all, I have no regrets. The time I spent, 3 years. But I said we were laughing, Casey and I, yesterday. He said that his best paycheck was $87. And I said, well, I got up to 114, and that was with overseas pay.
Yeah.
So all in all, it was a good experience, and I have no regrets really.
Okay. Well, Dennis, I want to thank you for doing this interview, and thank you for your service.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.